with that, I want to ask the first question, which is to Corbin and Mike. The question is, and I guess just before we kind of get into it, if we can sort of go into shorter answers for the time being, we'll prefer that because then I can ask more questions. We can go over time if we can go through more. So there are a few other bridge projects that are bringing Filecoin to Ethereum. Could you sort of highlight why or what's unique about your DeFi bridge?
Yes, absolutely. And apologize for the lighting here. So I think I know of about 5 different projects, all of them with interesting different approaches. One of the things we prioritized was a decentralized approach, which is why we used Ren protocol for our bridge. So for the wrapped version, for the Huobi version, both of them use a centralized custodian in the middle that facilitates the swap. And so you have that centralization risk, where with Ren protocol, it's a little bit more decentralized. It's a network of different nodes that's signing the transaction to move it across. So we're very much on the decentralized spectrum. Some of the other ones, are different places there. I see the entire ecosystem probably being in their own automated market maker on Ethereum, and hopefully we'll have price parity between them all.
Awesome. Lester, the next question is for you. This is slightly open-ended, but if you have anything specific you want to talk about, that'd be awesome. What do most people misjudge or misinterpret about the Chinese Filecoin ecosystem?
Most misinterpret. Yeah. I think it's like right now the current perception, okay, China is like lot of miner, right? And I think one thing maybe people in the West don't know is like there are a lot of retail investor for Filecoin ecosystem also. Because all those mining machines, what we hear the rumor is like those people sell hundreds of million US dollar machine to the retail invest community. I think maybe it's like, so maybe that one thing is like we not just have a large miner community in the Asia, in China also we have a large retail investor community in China. So people, when they sell the machine to those retail, they say, okay, if you miss the Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin chain, so then maybe the Filecoin is another Bitcoin this year or something. So I think that's one point. Yeah. What other? What other is like? To be honest, I think there's maybe one thing the West in the West community maybe don't know about it. I think for the rest, I think the perception is quite clear, right? We mostly minor community and Asia, a lot of exchange activity. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for that. I'll try to combine this question for James and Matthew, because you are all similarly in this dynamic by being in the US. But the quick question from the chat is there a tax disposition on, let me make sure I say this right. I misplaced the questions. Yes. Let me just read this directly from the chat. Is there a disposition with loans creating a tax event for both of your lending markets and borrowing markets?
So I'll start off with the standard. We do not provide tax advice, nor give tax advice, nor do we even talk about tax advice. Going on from there, so if I just say generally, when we enter into a swap, swaps have a 30+ year history of tax guidance. These are considered non-security swaps. So you have a fairly easy way to be able to look up how do you treat the tax ramifications there. We don't take on, so when we are lending, right, what we're doing is we're just taking in collateral. So the swap is a swap. You have your tax issues there. The collateral is something that we hold and then we return back. Same as the miner, they do the same thing. So so that's an exchange of collateral. That's not an exchange or a sale like when you rehypothecate or if you use a repo market and you sell the asset and come back. you may have different kinds of issues. But so for the way that we specifically structured it was to say, you can understand how a swap gets used, but the assets being changed are just collateral.
And Matthew, I'll let you
Same
add
answer.
anything else.
Yeah, we issue 1099s for the interest earned for such loans, but the withdrawal and redeposit of the asset is not, in our understanding, a tax event.
Awesome. So another question for you, Matthew, which is, are there any specific borrowing use cases that you are particularly excited about for just the Filecoin ecosystem within the US?
I think there is a lot of creativity coming from liquidity providers to, I'd say, increase the liquidity of Filecoin. As I said, there is a number of unvested Filecoin out there, that are in the pipeline to become liquid at some point. And yeah, many institutional players are looking for ways to free that value and let it circulate in the network by proxy. That can be done via derivatives instruments and via borrowing as well is a way to hedge such trades. So there is creativity there, but it's extremely satisfying at its core to be able to satisfy corporate demand for an asset. It's very rare in crypto to have a corporate need for something that is not just going to a liquidity pool, going to something to get a reward token. This is real people with real storage in real warehouses who need those Filecoin to grow their business. And we feel like we are helping them grow and be successful. And also they took a lot of risks to get involved in the Filecoin ecosystem. So we're very happy that we're able to help them realize their vision and answer a real demand there.
No, it's a really great point. Yeah, you're satisfying a demand that isn't usually interacting with the crypto world that we are more familiar to. That's awesome. And the last question I want to ask is to Masa. The question is, how do you kind of think about leveraging existing DeFi protocols on Ethereum with secured finance? Like, do you think that's separate, or do you want to include them in and kind of merge your centralized and decentralized approach? How do you see that?
Yeah, so basically we can be together to increase the crypto economy transactions. And basically, we're trying to invite institutional banks and investors into our peer-to-peer transaction network. So the trading volume will be relatively higher, and we welcome the existing DeFi project to be a counterparty of our project, so that we can connect with their. Basically, we can provide more liquidity to the existing DeFi projects, so we can be together.
Awesome. There are a few more questions that we have on our list, but we are short on time. So what I'll do is I'll just ask one last question, which is from Juan. And the question is for Matthew at CoinList. How do you make sure borrowers of Filecoin are miners and not specifically people who are borrowing too short? And do you incorporate any checks or notions of reliability and credit rating for these miners?
Absolutely. So we KYC and check who we are sending the Filecoin to. It's a prerequisite. We're not just facing like a DeFi protocol or smart contract. We don't just face a wallet address. We face a real person who has onboarded with us and sent the passport and everything. That's Coinlist's brand. Doing KYC and doing AML and doing it really well. That's what we built in the last few years, and we cannot screw this up because that's what we're famous for. So that's number one. In terms of the credit risk, it's a very interesting question. I'm not down in China visiting those companies, so we do back channeling a lot. We check with people on the ground, people that we know. Do you know this person? These people are borrowing millions at a time, so they are usually fairly prominent. I'm in touch with Protocol Labs actively to check on any names that I don't know, because you guys, of course, have built a gigantic miner network. All of the big ones. Who's trustworthy, who's less. So I'm always, if I have any doubts, I don't hesitate to go to Protocol Labs to check what's going on. In terms of the pricing of that credit spread, a miner is more risky than another miner. They're both real. They're both willing to increase their business. But how should we price that? It's really a bit of trial and error thing. We start with a high collateral requirement, something around 75% LTV with a name that we don't know or we know less, so we have less recommendations around. And as time goes by and margin calls are being answered, we slowly reduce that LTV. In practice, so far, we've received a lot of Bitcoin and ETH collateral that has shot up dramatically, while Filecoin has stayed more stable at a great price level, but more stable. So we haven't had any margin calls to do in that sense because they are borrowing the asset that is not appreciating as fast. So it has been a non-issue so far.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for that answer. And we'll post the rest of the questions on the chat. Thanks, everybody, for staying on and answering a lot of our questions and for doing your talk in all these different time zones and sort of being open to this. And we're glad to have you here.